Welcome to Fiction Authors Talk Books or Fat Books podcast. This episode, I'm talking with the incredible Lexie Winston about being a plotter versus pantser and how sex ties into romance as authors and readers. I named this podcast Fiction Authors Talk Books because I wanted it to incorporate all aspects of being a fiction author in the discussions. Being an author is a stressful job with high expectations from ourselves and our fans, so this will always be a chill conversation that probably goes off topic most times, but we'll still have some fun. If you enjoy this podcast and would like to see your favorite author in here, send them this link and they can get in touch with us at fatbookspodcast@gmail.com. We take all authors who write fiction and have been published as long as they're polite. Thanks for joining, and on to the podcast.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I haven't listened to your accent all that long. It's lovely, but you don't sound very Aussie. You sound more like Brits than I know.
Really? Okay, so I live on the west coast of Australia, and
Oh, there it is. I heard it on that. Yeah.
I often get told that I sound very different to people who live on the east coast,
Okay.
which I don't know. I think that happens in America. You've got different
Oh God, yes.
accents across
Yeah.
across the country. I think it's similar here too. One of my friends in the US told me she thought I sounded posh and British, and I'm thinking, no, just Aussie. But apparently it sounds different to different people. So
I'm hearing it now that you're talking a bit more. The opening greeting was more like not London, because I have a friend who lives outside London, not Londoner, but more like, I don't know, South Brit. I don't really know their dialects either, but we've got like 14 different accents at least all around the US, because I mean, it's just ginormous. I'm from the Midwest, which is a different one. And so I do sound like a Midwesterner, but I'm actually originally from Chicago, which is a thicker accent that is very distinguishable. But in college, I worked really hard to kind of lose some of my Chicagan accent because it was
okay.
it was just distracting to everyone. So now I definitely sound like a Midwesterner, but unless I'm drinking, you can't really, or really upset, like you can't tell I'm from Chicago. And then it's just, I'm more ghetto fabulous than really.
Yeah, the different accents always blow my mind. You're all in one place, but yeah, it sounds so different.
Right? There's actually, if you ever need an accent reference, just author to author, there is a comedian, I think his name is Ben Brainerd, and he does this comedy skit, and it's like ongoing on YouTube. It's really funny, but it's like if each state had its own personality or whatever. But it's actually, he's really good. Like, even having lived in several states now, or, coming from Illinois, he's really accurate. It's really funny being from here, but I just always think of good references, like research references as an author. Like, yeah, this would be something to recommend to somebody out of the country if they're an author.
Yeah, it would be, because it is some kind of hard when you're writing different places and you're not quite sure how the accent sounds, or
Yeah.
influences on different words and those sorts of
Oh,
things.
for sure. Or even just
Mm.
dispositions. Like, if you had somebody in Washington state who was like, go, 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 flying all around, very works 80 hours a week kind of vibe, you got the wrong state. Same thing with the South.
Right.
Like, I've read some books by non-American authors, and they have like this image of Americans in general, and then like they'll put it in the South, and I'm like, honey, you might as well be writing about a different country, because it's
Right. Okay.
yeah, it's just how it works. But yeah, so I always do the same thing. Like, I have characters from Australia, and not too many, because you guys are a little tricky there too. But yeah, and then you got to worry about being respectful. Like, the character even says at one point in time, we don't all say crikey 14 times an hour,
Yeah.
like the movies or the stereotypes.
Oh, it drives me nuts when authors write like that.
Yeah. And I think he
Yeah.
said, like, she like asks, like, do you say it? He goes, yeah, it's kind of like an all-inclusive swear, or like, oh no, kind of exclamation. But
I
we
actually don't know anyone who uses it.
really, because that's was my
Seriously.
research. Like, in certain
No.
areas, it's kind of like your all-inclusive swear not to be a real swear. I have an author friend who actually lives, I think, on the east side of Australia.
Probably.
And
Yeah.
she said it like that too. Like, it's just sometimes when you're trying to bleep yourself, basically, like you might just say crikey.
Yeah, not on the West Coast. I like I said, I really don't know anyone who uses it. But then that might be I don't know anyone who doesn't swear.
Or it might be
Censors
that it became
themselves.
such a thing 10, 20 years ago that people just, like, it's not funny to say
Yeah.
anymore.
Maybe. Just throw a shrimp on the Barbie. We don't say that. And that was an ad on a TV ad for so many years. And no, we don't say that. We
Oh,
don't
that's
say
almost
shrimp.
disappointing because I've heard so many people be like, in a nice way, to like represent Aussie. And I've actually heard Chris Hemsworth say it though, so somebody there still has to say it for it to be like a
He
thing, or unless he was
says
just
it
playing it
because
up. He's playing it
it
up.
it was an ad, and it was, them trying to make it sound like that's what we don't use shrimp. We don't say shrimp. We say prawns. That's what
Oh,
we call
wow.
them. So
Do you say prawns on the Barbie then, or no?
No.
You just don't say any of
no,
it.
just
Yeah.
no, don't say any of it. I mean, I guess if you're going to put a prawn on the Barbie, maybe, but
Oh,
yeah,
that's
funny.
it's funny how inaccurate like everything gets. And it's not even like, I'm not picking on authors who don't write Americans like all that. I'm sure I've messed up, and there's creative license and you do your best, but
Yes, that's right.
there's only so much you can really get from researching different things. I had like a whole list of slang in London, and I sent it to a author friend of mine who lives outside London. She's like, I've only heard about half of these. The rest are posh. It's not like normal London. I'm like, mother, don't go
Yeah.
online and act like you're an authority when you really have no clue.
Yeah. I try and ask people who may have an idea, but sometimes you just got to wing it, don't you? And hope you get it right.
Oh, for sure. I take most of my research, like, there are a few YouTubers I like, gaming ones that are British, and like I kind of just take if they've said it, like I just heard them say it. But not everybody needs to have like a thick accent or a lot of influence. It can just be like they grew up there or they were there for some years, like, because I mean, most of my stuff is based in America anyway, so it makes sense that somebody came here or is visiting and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It is very tricky. And there was one thing on one of my books where somebody from Australia was like, we really don't do that. And a different fan from Australia was like, what the hell are you talking about? We do it all the time.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah,
the
it's
two
like I
of them
said.
were fighting, like who was right or who was wrong. I was like, ladies, I got you. It's not a all inclusive. Everybody doesn't do it. It was so funny. Like I was waiting for one of them to be like, we're fighting over this.
I guess it's the same, different states do different things different ways, and
Oh God, yeah.
they
For
get
us being
kind
the
of
United
possessive over
States,
it.
we're not all that united. We're not all that uniform was the word I was looking for. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
that always drives me insane.
I had to research the marriage laws in the US,
Oh,
and the age of
consent and
consent,
yeah,
and the fact that they differ across, and they differ
vastly.
widely,
Yeah.
across the states, just blew my mind.
Yeah, it's actually the same with the driver's license, depending on the driver's permit and everything. But yeah, it's like trying to explain to people outside of America why we have licenses for different states and you have to change your license to move, but then have a US passport to travel outside the US. The divorce laws are even more complicated than the marriage laws. I was doing some research for one thing, and it was like, swear to God, if it's a full moon on like the second month of the year and the lunar eclipse is not in orbit of Venus, you can have a no default divorce. I was just like, do not get married in that state.
No, it's silly. Oh,
Yeah.
so many complicated things to it's
Well, yeah, and it gets really complicated
confusing.
for people who have kids and like have divorced and cross state lines. I'd be terrified, honestly. Like
Oh,
there's
and then
just
the
so many
child
weird.
support and all of
Yep.
that sort of thing. It's confusing.
Yeah.
I'm coming to Boston next year.
Oh.
I'm excited about the food, but I certainly won't be driving because you guys drive on the wrong side of the road anyway. So
You know
no
what?
driving for me.
We drive on the different side of the road because most of the other countries in the world agree with us.
I actually think it's a bit of a 50-50 split. Like, I think most of Asia drives on the same side as the road of us, and I guess probably only England. We'll just leave it to the different side of the road.
Oh, so we were going to talk about, I like to outline, and you kept using certain
I'm
words.
a really bad pantser. I might do a few bullet points for each chapter, and that's not even prior to starting. I usually get an idea in my head, and I'll write the first chapter, and then I'll go, crap, what am I going to write for the rest of this book? And so then I'll write a few bullet points for each sort of chapter, and they usually get thrown out the door once I get to the chapter. But that is the only kind of plotting I do.
See, that fills me with anxiety. Like my heart is racing just thinking about approaching a book like that because I'm such an outliner. So one of my series, the first quote unquote idea scene that I had was actually in like book 7 or 8 when Tamsin gets her wings. That's exactly the first scene that I saw.
Right. Holy guacamole.
So
Wow.
for me, it was building the backstory of that. And I saw that scene, a couple different scenes, and then the ending. The series will be like 25, 26 books. That's not a normal for me.
So did you seriously plot out all of Artemis's books? Is that what you've got? Do you plot them like one at a time, or did you plot all 20 whatever you're writing of them?
So I'm working on 18. I have 19, 20, and 21 pretty much all outlined. Now, I don't like outline who does what for a sex scene. Like I know to work those in. There will be some other stuff, but I have like the main, I think there's like 20 outlined items or scenes for those books. That is normal for me to have 3 or so books lined up for the series and I know what's what.
So 3 ahead.
Yeah,
So
2 or
you've
3
got,
ahead with
yeah.
my with my established series. There are a few that I'm like I have no idea when something strikes, like one of my smaller ones. It's like when something hits me, I will outline most of it. But like even my Karma Bakery series, I have a few things that I know are going to happen in the progression, but I don't really know what the next book is really going to be. Like
Yeah.
I don't have like formal outlines. I always have like, I think of it like the railroad or building the train tracks. For all of my series, I have like all the flag posts and all the construction zone kind of like stuff laid out. And then when I get closer, I kind of like lay more tracks down in the outline. But yeah, I mean, when I just started the book, I had every chapter, like I knew what was happening in every chapter. I know how this book ends. I don't know that I've ever gotten to start a book and not know where the ending will be.
I wish I had that problem.
Well,
I always think, oh, how am I going to end this now? No, I always have a fair idea of what I want to happen at the end, but it's how I'm going to get to that end that I then go, oh, so what happens next?
but I'm very fluid on my outlines. Like in this book, I had planned to hit like a couple things that I'm like, you know what? I don't like that in this book as the vibe. So it's now a couple things are switched to 19. But that's also why I don't do rewrites. Like
Yeah.
I had an author friend and she would do rewrites and just rewrites. And I'm like, one, you're putting in so much heartache to yourself. Like 90% of the time I would read the rewrites and be like, it was better in the beginning. Like,
Yeah.
you can overfrost the cake at some point.
No, I agree completely. I tend to go with not necessarily my first draft.
Oh, God,
Like
no.
I will go back and add extra stuff, but I'll
Yes.
not very often mess with what I've already got.
Yeah.
I will expand on what's there, but I'm usually pretty
Absolutely.
happy with what I have
Yeah.
first time round because that's what my gut was telling me.
Right. I do 2 rounds of, sometimes 3 rounds of edits with my editor. How does being a pantser work with like research and stuff?
I tend to have to break off from the story and then do my research. So if I get to a scene where it depends, I wing most things, and then if it's something that people are going to go, no, that doesn't work like that, then I'll go back and I'll do the research. So if a specific gun fires in a specific way and those kind of things, then I'll do the research and I'll take half an hour to do that or whatever. But it's fiction, and most of what I write is paranormal. So
Mhm.
it's you just magic that doesn't work, you know. I
Um,
just I mean, the contemporary stuff's different. You have to get it right. So I do quite
yeah.
a bit of research into that. One of my stories had a vet in it. I had a vet. She'd read through everything before I published it to make sure that it was at least plausible and mostly correct. So
Yeah.
that's sort of how I do that kind of stuff. I'll ask someone who's knowledgeable in subject to read it, or you know, if I'm writing somewhere in America, I'll say, okay, so in my Facebook group, who's from such and such, and do you have such and such? You know, I'll ask for reader input so that I'm actually
Yeah.
getting actual input in case what I'm researching on Google is wrong. You know,
Makes sense. Yeah, no, I getcha. When I'm done writing for the day, because I know what I'm doing the next day, kind of outline, that's when I kind of like pull up the right Google references. I do this. Because if I do too much of the research while I'm writing, I just feel like I lose my flow.
I tend to be a bit of a squirrel and I do get a little bit distracted and I will go off on a tangent and I'll end up with like 6 or 7 different windows open with 6 or 7 different things I'm researching. And then I'll think, crap, I've just wasted an hour and I should be writing. So, yeah, it's probably not the most ideal way to do it, but it's what works for me.
Yeah, my computer doesn't like me having 78 tabs open because I had so much open from the book in my outline, and then I was forgetting to close it as I was going along.
I don't think I've had quite as many. I don't think 78 would be. I don't think my computer would even fit 78 on across the screen.
Yeah, I have a bigger all-in-one that I write on, so that's nice. But
See, those kind of things you need to. I don't write a lot. I try not to include a lot that needs that kind of thing, that kind of research. Does that make sense?
yeah,
Try to avoid putting those kind of scenes in my books that require that much research. Not because I'm lazy or anything like that, but people are really cruel if you get it wrong, you know.
yes,
So I try and avoid very specifics. Like I'll just make stuff up because you know, it's fiction and I'll just make it my own instead of picking something that already exists in real life.
yeah.
Do you understand? Because you get people,
No, it's
they
I
come down on
absolutely
you hard.
yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. I do really enjoy the research. I have shelves and shelves of research books and like Norse mythology and all kinds of stuff. I fall down the research rabbit holes really fast and hard.
You get all this deep research, you know, and here I am over here researching how to grow weed. Oh, I have to. It's because here in Australia it's not legal, so you know I need to. If I have a character which I do in an upcoming book, who is runs a weed dispensary. I had to do all that research, and
Oh,
my husband's over here going, "You're going to get us arrested. You're going to get us raided by all this research." And I'm going to say, "No, honey. They're going to take one look at my search history and realise that I am an author and that they don't need to come and raid our house." In one day, I'd researched various different drug manufacturing and
oh God, yeah.
guns and how to bury a dead body and all of this kind of stuff. And I thought for sure I was going to get a knock on the door and at
I've
least someone asking questions.
I've looked at all those besides I've never researched how to bury a dead body because I always do like I mean my side is the FBI side where I want it found.
And the other question I got was, how do you write so many sex scenes and make them different? And I said, I watch a lot of porn.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do, you know, you
Well, it's
flicker,
like
oh
you got to
God, what
figure
am
it
I going
out.
to do?
Like it.
Especially in group scenes.
Oh
One on
God,
one,
yeah.
it's not too bad, but group scenes, and I also have to draw diagrams to work out like stick figure diagrams, like you
Oh
know,
God, that's so
tab
funny.
A goes into slot B sort of thing to make sure that
Oh God, I'm
everything's where it
dying.
needs to be.
That is amazing. I do have to say that there are less, and some I've had a few people bust me for this, but there are less sex scenes in my books now that I live in an apartment because I don't have a backyard to let my dog out in anymore. So every time I go outside, I see people. I walk him 4 or 5 times a day. It kills my flow. If people want more sex scenes in them again, I need to get the hell out of this apartment.
I quite often go to coffee shops just to get out of my house and just for a change of scene. And I quite often go and sit in a coffee shop and write. But I can guarantee you I cannot write a sex scene in a coffee shop because I'm constantly glancing around to see who's looking over my shoulder to,
Oh
look at
God,
my
yeah.
screen or, I have to have my back to a wall so no one's actually reading over my shoulder. And yeah, no, the sex scenes, they have to wait until I come home to write, then write out in public because I feel my face flush red and
Oh God, yeah.
it's
Honestly, it's just nerve-wracking. I can't do the writing in a coffee shop thing. I need like just my bubble. Like I play music when I write. I prefer silence, but I normally play music because again, apartment, there's people in the hallway sometimes, and my dog loses his mind. So if the music's playing, he doesn't hear it, whatever.
yeah.
I think the only place
Mm.
I've done is actual writing is on a plane, and nobody was sitting next to me, and it was like early morning. I couldn't sleep, but like it wasn't a full flight. I'm too much into my routines and my bubble, and at least you get coffee out of the deal if you're going to the coffee house.
It's more that I find myself get stuck,
Yeah.
not stuck, but the flow kind of, uh, I guess, ebbs away, and you sort of think, oh, maybe a change of scenery will just sort of kickstart the creative process again, sometimes it works, and sometimes I sit there and all I do is scroll through Facebook or other social media the whole entire time I'm drinking my coffee. But I guess it then gives me a reset, and I come back and then I'll write again. But I do try. I mean, most of the times I do get words done. Just that break instead of staring at a wall.
See, I do
Um,
that outlining. A lot of times I'll go downstairs by not like laying at the pool, but like the common area off the pool and just bring a notebook and lunch and just that's when I outline like what's coming next, what's down the pipeline or what do I want to add. My favorite is what open thread did I leave that eventually I need to close.
I use the shower as well when I get stuck. I'll sit at the bottom of the shower for 10 minutes. I mean, it's wasteful, I know, I admit it, but it really does help clear the mind and,
Oh, for
inspire.
sure. Yeah, I write blurbs in the shower. I don't know
I
why.
hate blurbs. Uh,
I do too. Yeah, and it's always like I didn't submit the blurb with the book, so like the first round of editing is done and I've got to write the blurb, but I'm already working on a different book which I'm an idiot for. But yeah, I that's the shower. Like I take a shower and I think of how to like start it and
I had a release coming up and I'd realised I hadn't written the blurb for it, and I was like, ah, crap, now I have to go back and write that blurb. I hate blurb writing.
yeah, it really is bad. There are some authors that love it and I'm just
And they're
like
good at and they're good at I think it's because 'cause I'm bad at it, like, really
I
bad
think
at
we
it.
all think that we're bad at it and we're really not because I hate most of my blurbs. I think they're trash.
It's weird to me where the line is for sexes in books. Like, you can't write about young adult and also write adult under the same name.
I know there are a few authors that like the series tanked if they went from like young adult and moved into new adult. Like apparently that's
Yeah.
the line. Some people just can't take any schnooky.
I think young adult, yeah, young adult to new adult. I mean, it goes. I don't like fade to black in my books, whether I write them or I read them. I find fade to black annoying, so I won't read young adult. It just feels like they're glossing over the fact that teenagers do that kind of stuff. I don't think it's. I think they need to provide more positive
And it's not pornish where
options.
somebody's always getting something on
Yes.
their face and kneeling
Yeah,
on the
it doesn't
yes,
it
I
exactly.
absolutely
It
agree.
doesn't have to be graphic and gratuitous, but they also
Yeah.
need to. I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
Teenagers will be teenagers. They're
Yeah.
horny. They're going to experiment. So let's give them some positive examples
Yes.
and use protection and
And
and you
yep.
know and be careful and all that kind of stuff, so that we're setting good examples.
One, I 100% agree with it, and it annoys me in young adult because, like, you
Yeah,
can do it in a
yeah.
tasteful way, not to scar the kiddies who probably know more than the authors do about sex and porn and everything else that is on everywhere.
It drives me nuts too when I read an adult book and they fade to black in it. Like, I don't want fade to black in my books. I want to know that all that sexual tension led somewhere.
Yeah,
That there is a reward at the end of that book, not a quick 5-second, and they had sex, and that was it. It's no,
Yeah.
don't do this to me. Don't tease me the whole entire time, and not put out at the end. That will make me throw my book across the room faster than any kind of cliffhanger or anything like that.
Oh, wow.
Cliffhangers I get as an author.
Oh,
I
right. You
get
want him to pick up the
cliffhangers.
next
They
book.
are a great. Absolutely, they're a tool, and they're an effective tool. The fade to black, no way, mate. You fade to black, and I'm not reading the next one.
Now, I do fade to black, but I've had already enough sex in the book by then, or
But
we
that's
don't
it.
need
I
the.
don't.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so not just any
Yeah,
fade to
no.
black. You need like certain parameters.
No. If your whole book has been this sexual tension all the way through the book, no sex scenes, just the sparks are flying between your two characters, and you're thinking, yeah, we're going to get to this sex scene, and it's going to be mind blowing, and then they
Yeah.
fade to black at the end. They leave it to the very end, and then they fade it to black, and I'm like, what the?
Yeah. I have an unpublished book where the ending is like, and I made the worst mistake of my life. But then the next book picks up with the sex scene. So I left that cliffhanger of like, what was the decision she made? And then eventually I give the sex scene.
That's okay, because it gets there. But the
Yeah.
ones that
Don't
don't
just
have them at
gloss
all,
over it is what you're
at
saying.
all. I occasionally do it too when you've had 3 sex scenes in the book already, and you're like, oh no, I'll just fade to black the next one, because there's only so much sex you can read in a book,
Or it is,
I
it
do
is
that,
erotica
that's
then,
fine.
yeah.
The ones that you think it's going to happen, the promise is there, and then they pull it away, and they destroy you completely because it's not there. I'll stop reading them if I find that.
If they've teased, if they've tweaked with your heart, you're out.
Yeah,
That's so funny.
Right. It's like, no, how can you do that? How can you do that to me? It's funny because, I would never say anything to the author,
Oh God, no.
or, message them or anything like that. I think that's crossing the boundaries. It's their book. I picked it up as a romance, and these days, maybe once upon a time, you not necessarily expect it, but these days I expect sex in my romance books. I just think that's how they need to be.
Well, if it's in every episode of Game of Thrones, like if it's in every freaking episode, like yeah, give me a little something something. I'm dying though that you said like the 3 sex scenes in a book, because that's my rough guideline too, is to not really go over 3.
It depends. I don't throw in a sex scene for the sake of a sex scene.
Oh God, no. No.
It has to fit in with the story. So if it warrants it, then I'll put it. But if it doesn't, then no. There is only so much. And you end up flicking through the ones that have too many and skipping over the sex scenes to get back to the story. And I don't want people doing that in mine.
Yeah, I don't like that either. I was saying 3 as a max. Like I don't like to go over 3 in a book. I just don't feel it's long enough, or like you're getting a little too something something. Or that's when I really start glossing over of just like the reconnection, like we had a bounce chicka bounce night, but it's not.
And it depends. I tend to write really big harems, and it depends. If I've got, like, my latest series it's going to be 10 in the harem at the end.
Holy crap, woman.
Hey, my first series had 10. I wrote a 9-way sex scene that had all 9 people involved. That was tricky. But I managed it.
It's a football team.
So up until now, only really 6 of the characters have appeared in the book. I try and get it so that not necessarily a sex scene with each in the book, but so that they each get their FaceTime or screen time, so to speak, that page time, so that people don't go, oh, but we didn't see such and such, and this person didn't get to have sex, or, because that bothers certain readers. So I try and make it even.
I get that crap all the time with Artemis. I've had so many people be like, it's not a reverse harem. And I'm like, wait for it. I don't like the Insta everything's okay. Like, you got to work for that happy ending with 5 guys, 6 guys, 7 guys, 4 guys,
10 guys.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. I couldn't keep them all straight. I would just start numbering them. We all have our limits.
Keep the ones in Seraphine. How do you keep them all straight?
Oh my God, I'm a total hypocrite. Yeah, she's probably got more than 10. Well, okay. So she doesn't have that many real like mates. I'm thinking you're talking like mate. Yeah, she's got some tag-in alternatives that kind of coming off. Yeah, if you meant like 10 real mates, oh my God, I couldn't keep that straight. But yeah, you're right. Seraphine's getting up there.
Hey, do you write like character cards And do you write yourself like a glossary of characters? Because
Yes,
Seraphine's got so many characters in it, and I just wonder how you keep them all straight.
I have a very big spreadsheet.
Yeah, okay. And do you do it all on a spreadsheet? Because I actually use index cards, and I write in the index card for each of them, and then I can flick back through. I like the feeling of being able to physically flick back through them. I don't like to switch between screens on my computer, so having them here in front of me, I just, ruffle through the cards to find which one I need. And you have
Oh,
yours on a spreadsheet, yeah?
yeah. Like Seraphine in particular, I have, and when I'm writing in the actual manuscript Word file, I have open her character chart. There is a location notes file, so I don't like all of a sudden make her house 14 floors and it's supposed to be 25 or, And then I have open threads that I got to close and go through and look back on. But like Tamsin for Artemis, I've got characters, I've got the open threads one, and I've always got her semester schedule open, that was a new one for me. I've never done the college academy drama kind of genre or
Oh,
whatever.
and college works so differently in the US to here in Australia. I've started writing something that is college based, and I had to message one of my friends and say, please explain this to me, because it's completely different to here. Like, from what I understand, you guys all go and live at the college while they're attending it.
Yes, a lot of state schools or a lot of schools require it. If it's not a community college, which is like the first 2 years of a 4-year degree, like I went to University of Illinois and it was required. You had to live on campus.
Yeah, that's not done here. The only people they do have dorms close to campuses, but that's for people who live remotely, so who don't live close by the college. But everyone else just buses in or drives in every day.
Yeah, I mean, in like New York City, that's common. Like you can maybe
Okay.
share like an apartment. There are a lot of colleges where you can, but like so University of Illinois is out in like it's just a campus town down in central Illinois. Like the university
Okay.
is the whole town basically. I mean, I don't know if you could get an exemption for a local, but most people come from all over the state, or it was a really good engineering school, so we had a lot of
Yeah. Okay.
international students. And I think just for like campus legalities, everybody had to live in the dorm. We had RAs, all the idiot college Greek kids and everything.
That Greek system, that's weird.
That's
For an
so
Aussie, you
right.
know what I mean? Wrapping your head around um, sororities and fraternities, and you see them portrayed in movies and things, but yeah, that's not
That's not
something we do here.
hopefully it's gotten better since I've been in college, but the movies are fairly accurate with the idiocy of
Right.
and I went to a very University of Illinois has a because it's a Big Ten school for like football and stuff, but it was a very large Greek system, and it was every stereotypical crap that you would think of. I was in my freshman year. I was in a chemistry class, and 3 naked frat guys came to for a pledge thing. Came in and like it was just like the professor was just like sighing, and a freshman away from home. But yeah, there was a lot of that crap, and there was a lot of the bad stuff with it too, with campus security. Like if you look into the stereotype of like campus security is crap and they protect the university, not the students, that's a real thing. I think one of the only college stereotypes that I never found true in movies is I'm thinking like the Ryan Reynolds movie, I think Van Wilder, where he's been in school for like
Wilder. I love Van Wilder.
yeah, like where he's been in
Sorry.
school for like 8 years, like University of
Yeah.
Illinois wouldn't allow that. I think you
Right.
can max out at 5.5 to get your bachelor's, or you out. Like a lot of the schools don't allow that. So unfortunately, a lot of the bad stereotypes for our colleges are accurate.
I want to give a big thanks to Lexie Winston for joining me for such a fun conversation. Also to all our fans for checking out this podcast. I hope you liked what you heard and decide to stick around. Please make sure to subscribe to the Fat Books podcast on YouTube or Spotify and that little purple icon on your Apple device. Let's hear a bit about what Lexie's working on and what she's got coming out next.
So I have book 3 of my Galaxy Circus series coming out. It's a sci-fi reverse harem that's set in a circus, an alien circus. She has just found out she is an alien and inherits this circus. So it's a bit of fun. There's a bit of, one of her mates is a kraken with tentacles. So it gets a bit freaky in there a little bit. I do have 2 more pre-orders coming out. One is a book 2 in a mafia reverse harem that I'm writing. And the other one is a brand new, I don't think it's going to be a series, I think it's going to be a standalone. And that's a spy. She's a spy and has to go undercover with a group of guys. So that's kind of exciting. I'm excited for those.
Thanks for staying until the end and hope you enjoyed it.